You guys ready for chapter 7 in my book series, Grin and Gem? Because this would be a good one. If you haven't yet, please go check out the character introductions for this chapter because it's going to be really cool. If you've missed out on anything, they're there. They're not going to go anywhere, so I promise you're not missing out on anything. But if you haven't yet, go check them out because chapter 7 is going to be a good one. Not only is there a new character introduction for this, we see a transformation within Alita, and I realized I haven't really shown any of the forms of Informe. So you can find those illustrations in that video. I'll put it up here somewhere. Again, I'm still trying to learn how to do this YouTube stuff, so I'll put it up here somewhere eventually. I'm sure of it. So let's get into the audiobook, right? So chapter 7, Voracitas. Alita is always awake and sometimes seems to not sleep at all the past few days because of her curiosity. In her own way, I think she is just discovering the world and perceiving life at face value. She spends quite a bit of time looking and observing objects, sometimes just staring for what seems like hours at random things. I can tell she is discovering things just in her own way, like a child. The days are long and hard, with a returning envy of how things used to be, but I really am so thankful for Alita and Jim's newfound glory. Alita is quite nice in the sense that she will stop what she's doing at a moment's notice to help or even just do things for me. Not in a coddling way, but more of a respectful way. Her routine is always so pristine and honestly almost never really strays from it. I tell her often that she is allowed to explore the mansion as she sees fit whenever she would like to, but never leaves me in a room or my side unless I do. The way she prepares for the day is often average, which includes taking care of me and training immediately afterwards and then sleep. Today we are getting ready to skirmish with Sister Gem. Alita has been under a lot of training for her legs and it's beginning to show in her figure. Her stance is quite a sight to see, especially as one so boldly to step in between someone of my caliber and someone else. She can hold her own, and trust me when I say her movement almost matches my own. Which is interesting, seeing that she has bandages on her eyes that she doesn't take off. I don't ask because I trust that she would tell me when she is ready. Her breathing techniques are insane and intense. She has to learn to handle the massive amounts of turbulent primal energy she's getting from her core, which is also being fueled now by me. The core in her source of being and the conduit that holds her consciousness here bound to the golem body while aiding me at the same time. Jim wasn't in the kitchen as she usually does. Instead, she sets the environment for our training, and it's our job to seek the fight out by traveling abroad. Her training methods are simple but very effective. She has us train together at every moment, ending the day with a light but intensive skirmish between her and Informe. Informe is incredibly powerful and is capable of many forms that she can change in midst of battles, which is truly fascinating. She can so quickly go from a defensive position to an offensive one with no hesitation, but is a continued difficulty for me to switch so often. Oddly, Jim was insanely argumentative last cycle when we had to discuss training outside the confines of the house, but we agreed that if we did, it can't be for too long for safety reasons. I'm sure it has something to do with the creatures that she may not find familiar to this world. She is always nervous to leave the perimeter, and I do think it is because of her being stuck behind the door with me when our parents were taken by the shadow. In addition, she can sometimes be outrageously overpowered in her attacks that could nearly kill both Alita and myself. Sometimes she makes my legs weak just by her auric presence. It is hard to describe Gem's advantages in battle, sometimes because she can summon so much mana and arcade that it spreads radiation in all directions prior to her attack. It's like her presence is an attack of its own, but obviously from the shadow's influence on her. Today we head towards a broken path into a wild grass prairie where we all could go out without causing damage to our home or the forest that protects us from other hideous dwelling imps that lay beyond the forest. In honesty, I am very excited to go all out on them, seeing as I know that in the right circumstances, we could have a good chance of winning at least one battle with them. Alita summoned her shield, now capable of much more than before when she was just learning to use it in battle. I remember at the very beginning when she was still learning the world that when we went outside and she saw a creature preying on her, that she would shield charge them, splattering them against the base of a massive trees, and then just wondering why they didn't want to play anymore. Her innocence was truly remarkable, and Jim was thoroughly impressed by her ability to be so agile, though carrying such a behemoth of a shield. Needless to say, she can't even see anything with those bandages around her eyes. It's so interesting. Placing the shield on her back, she finished assembling my armor and tightening my utility belt full of dusts, spells, curses, and more. I've become even better at casting my rituals and sigils now that I've been training against Informe mostly. She really does challenge my ability to be accurate, but also keep the battle's forecast in mind without risking my life just to exchange with my opponents. I've never really seen Informe turn into half of what Jim tells me she's capable of, so it worries me every now and again. Closing my eyes, I spawned my sword, now fully capable of being commanded by me. Checking the blade and my armor, we set out on foot for a day's travel to the prairie where Sister Jem awaited our heavy training. On our way there, Alita was getting familiar with the newer areas just like me. Yet, we have all now explored much of the environment around here due to our training, and constant guests that can't seem to leave us alone. Though I think Alita enjoys their company and keeps her busy knowing she's protecting me. Alita was much more of one to smell the roses along the way than be in it for the materials of life. Her wrappings around her eyes have never come off, but her hair has grown since the start of her arrival here. As the minutes turned into hours, I could feel an unease in the air, and the further we went, she stopped in her tracks, slid her shield to her side, making a massive thud as she caught it, causing her leg to impact the ground. She stood in anticipation, sensing the road ahead, something causing my unease and her intuition to be cautious. Out of the distant view of the dirt road, covered by the branches high above, allowing with little light could squeeze in, was a shadow of figure. Large and heaving, or what seemed to be breathing heavily. I drew my sword, activating Alita to expand her shield, and with a power charge, she flew forward, crushing the figure with a 20-meter dust cloud, ending with the demise of the creature. A wild creature looking for its next meal, most likely. She walked back to meet me to keep her in protective distance, just in case my sister planned a sneak attack. Alita shook her giant shield with one great big swing and placed it on her back. Her shield was massive, with many seals and enchantments to cover the outside, made of what only the highest caliber of materials this world could offer. Still carrying that white ivory handle with her on the back of her belt in a horizontal fashion. I have never, not once, seen her use it or even bring it up, but again, I trust her with my life, literally, so I don't ask knowing that if she's never had to draw it, it's probably for a good reason. Both of us walked into a clearing as nightfall came down on us that opened up the prairie. The only problem was, for us, that it was dark and starting to storm, and I mean heavily. The storms here are bad enough, even being tucked in a forest like we are. The clouds brew the most intimidating storms of black, and sometimes rains shards of minerals and crystals. The amount of open land here in the prairie was profound, and surrounded by tall, rolling hills of tall grass. The wind picked up and pushed us further forward. Alita got into a sneaking position as she entered the tall grass. The storm's lightning was striking vividly in the area, making it a minefield of nature's expressive behavior. I followed, watching the tree lines every time the flashes of light hit them, awaiting an attack. For some ways we traveled, her in front of me and me following close behind, when we both heard it. It was a roar of great deepness and the sounds of what could only be described as death itself. In the distance, we saw Sister Gem on a giant demon of her own design and creation. It had her aura all over it and clearly connected to her as a commanding unit, Informe. I turned Alita around and gave her the command to station herself on the outer premise of the prairie and wait for her cue. She bolted with an intense speed, leaving something on the ground. It was a picture of... Jim, all of a sudden, was directly on top of me with her demon. She cast a far lightning strike to my location just as the demon was punching into the ground. The impact sent debris and dust high into the air, only for them to notice I evaded them. I peered at Gem in the sky and rested my sword on my shoulder, looking back at the demon spawn. She summoned her staff and yelled, "Do not hold back, brother, or I will kill you." The words that left her mouth shook me, and Alita, even though she was so far, could feel the weight of her words through our soul link. Taking her words serious, I adjusted my composure and walked slowly into a run towards the demon, picking up speed. My trail in the grass began to split in front of me from my speed and rushed past the spawn with a great swing. It deflected the strike because of its skin, but that wouldn't be possible unless that was a real demon spawn. What has Informe done? Jim truly created a demon of dark nature, and that pisses me off. A greater side of me started to lose its temper. I started to unleash a fury of strikes on the dark creature. Jim cast a hurricane of spear-like shards from twisted grass and hauled them like a sharp vortex. The demon and I, still fighting in the midst of an arcane hurricane, I found a pocket to get a single solid strike in. I produced my stance and with a great yell struck Gem in the sky and forced her cast away like dust on a book. The demon hit me in the opening of my swing, sending me far into the grasses. "Where's my dear Alita, huh, Brother Grimm?" She laughed. "Has she grown tired of you and pulled out of her own core? Come out and serve your master, slave." Alita, in the position that I wanted her, stood, being barely visible in the distance, lit from the 2 moons' yellow-tinted light. "There you are." Jim, with a great purple burst, flew towards her, all while I dealt with the overpowered spawn. He came towards me with endless attacks that left no room to get a solid strike in. Clearly, my sister knew what she was doing when making an opponent for us. Rather, Informe. Strike after strike, he became faster as he gained momentum. I darted upward and used the lift time to absorb what little Archaea I could and swung, rolling my body forward, leaving nothing but a giant gash in the ground, and a huge cloud of dirt and grass consumed the sky. Alita watched as Gem hastily made her way to her position, so I gave her the cue. She summoned her shield, giving off a powerful pulsar, knocking the surrounding trees down. Then she did something I didn't know she was capable of doing. She reached for the white ivory handle and summoned a 3-meter-long great spear. She absorbed the light and vita from the nature around her, and using her shield as a weight to give her momentum, she started a hasty run, ending with her launching the light-seeped spear hurtling through the air, speeding exponentially faster as it gained distance towards Gem. Turning anything in its way into flame and fire, the spear found its way to its target, causing a massive dusty explosion. Alita bolted forward, seeking her prize to ensure it was a kill confirmed. The trees erupted with a furious purple explosion. A crater formed from Jem's impact into the ground. She walked up the edge of the crater, shaken from the hit of the spear, but by the time she got her bearings, Alita's shield bashed her through another tree line across the entire prairie, striking forward in an instant to chase after Jem. I was left in awe as I watched how she moved and took Sister Jem so easily in such gentle, concise gestures. The G-men spared no time to gain distance on me in my distractions with their bobbery. With a great jump, he hurled himself into the air with both fists together, bolting the ground with a great massive blow, sending another plume of debris into the sky. The dust cloud was followed by an inclement discharge from the storm above, giving the demon's strike another added layer of power. With each blow contacting the area around us, it was cause vivid strikes of lightning that followed. Quickly dodging his single-formed attacks, it became apparent to me that I must find an opening in order to get a clear shot, and have enough time to build up my Lux Arche and the sword. Again and again, making swift evades against him, the debris caught me in the midst of the strike and sent me rolling into the tall grasses. My side spewed blood, so I rubbed a handful of dirt and plugged the gash. He sent out a loud, aggravated roar as he slammed the ground in a berserking rampage, and then it clicked. I can use Informe's anger against him and find leverage. This may work, but it may also send me to my own demise. I jumped to my feet, blood starting to pour from my forehead as well. I gripped the hilt of my sword and dashed forward, this time in his direction. Sweat began to drip to my brow as the distance between us grew smaller. The storming brew ahead became angry and started to rain heavily on us in the dark and dusty plains. Moving to the right of him, I struck purposely again without charging my sword in an attempt to anger the dumb beast and to become blind by rage. As my legs struggled to keep up, I bolted again, making another strike followed by another. With every hit on him, he became to lose sight of me as planned. My energy and momentum building as each blow flew past him. The demon raised his fist and started to hit the ground in front of him in a rage, sending the debris yet again accumulating in the air, causing the lightning to brew between the electrons. Sliding past him as my sword didn't even graze his hide, I held my sword to my side, and instead of a dash striking him again, I sent myself upward towards the inclement weather. Holding my extended katana as high as I could, it started to attract all the lightning onto my blade. The sword was brighter than it's ever been, but even more difficult to wield now. With the time I used in the air, I conjured enough lux to make a worthy blow to send this demonic spawn back to the depths of limbo where it should have stayed. Descending, I swung the charge attack on him in this ravenous rampage, and with a giant lightning strike to follow, my plunge downward into the entirety of the open plains was lit up with a massive, tree-like charged attack. Static charged the air around us as a spherical discharge was formed, sending a large portion of the grass in all directions, piercing trees with stray blade as flimsy grass. I landed, expecting the demon to recourse, yet when the dust settled, all that remained was a pair of legs and its demonic twisted spine sticking out. The legs began to crumble into a purple ashy epitaph on the ground, where a little kitten laid sleeping. I let out a breath and peered upward towards the flashes and strikes in the distance from the two in their skirmish. Tending to the gash on my side, I recouped myself and headed towards them to aid Alita, but all I could think about in that moment was the picture. Why would Alita be possessed to keep such an item? Was it possible that she... No, that couldn't be it, I said to myself, brushing off the feelings that stirred. feelings I've never felt before. The feelings of... And that's why we're going to stop for chapter 7. Again, if you're enjoying this content, leave a like, leave a nice comment, subscribe if you would like, but I'm excited to get into chapter 8, where we're going to see exactly what type of transformation lies for Alita, and exactly why did she feel that this was the appropriate time to start using that ivory spear of hers that Grimm has never truly seen. Another question, what was that picture? Why did it make him question so much about Alita? And why would she possess a picture of this? So, stay tuned for chapter 8, and thanks again, guys. We'll see ya.